Great. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I hope that you can hear me and see me, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. I know that this topic is really kind of difficult for a lot of folks, and it's something that comes up so often. And I really want to normalize the fact that chronic pain and fear often go hand in hand, and that you don't have to do this alone or do this on your own. And I'm really grateful that you've decided to attend today and hopefully get some useful tools and tricks and tips to help navigate chronic pain and fear and hopefully dial down that fear, not dial, and feel a little bit more empowered to meet the fear, greet it, and not let it run the show. And so what we're going to do to start is just to get cozy. And if you have some tea or some water, I just want you to take a little moment to become a bit more present with me. This session will be a little bit more practice oriented, but I'll also go into the science behind fear and pain and do a little bit of education, but we're also going to have some tools and some practices to do together. So we'll start with one of those, and we're just going to take a moment, and if you don't have tea or coffee or water, you can just hold something else close to you. We're just going to have a present moment awareness practice, and we're just going to take a nice deep breath and exhale. I like to close down my eyes and just really tap into the touch sensation. My drink is warm. It's that Creo brew, hot tip. I know it's not related to fear, but it's cocoa beans brewed like coffee, and it's like a hug in a mug. So nice deep breath, then tune into the scent of it if you can. Exhale. Just tune into this present moment. You can then use your eyes. You can take a sip, but just use all of those 5 senses to bring you here and now. And so what we're first going to talk about is the science and a little bit of the education around fear and chronic pain. And so fear is a totally normal part of what we go through as human beings. It's actually very beneficial for us to have fear to help keep us safe. And so if the brain has learned that a certain action or a certain smell or something else, a certain sensation, if you will, is dangerous, then it will do whatever it can to keep us safe and to get rid of that. And that's also when we go into like fix it mode, which with chronic pain can also be a little bit difficult because it keeps our focus on the pain. And so what we want to do is recognize the fear and know that our amygdala is sending this danger alarm out into our body and our brain, and knowing that fear is normal, natural part. Like, of course you're in pain. Of course you want it to go away. But what can happen over time is that pathway gets really ingrained, and it becomes almost like a superhighway, if you will, of fear. And sensation equals this equals pain. And so what happens is there's this pain-fear cycle where we get fear about pain coming back, and then the pain does come back, and then we get more fear about it getting worse, and then more pain, and then more fear, and then it's just this little loop. And so what we want to do at Lin is change the direction of that loop, where you may still be getting those sensations and those fears, but over time they're not affecting you in the same way, and they're not activating the pain signal. And so what we do here at Lin is what I wish that I had when I was in chronic pain. I had chronic pain for about 17 years and all sorts of other symptoms as well. And when I found this work is when things really changed, and I had so much fear, and so do a lot of the members and the patients that I work with. Fear is just something that becomes almost like a habit. Like I said, that fear loop, we can get stuck there. And what I used to call it was this big black cloud of terror that just followed me around, and I couldn't really verbalize it. I didn't know how else to describe it. It was just this low level, sometimes very high level thing that always was with me. And it wasn't until I started doing some more somatic work, some more processing of other things, and using more like cognitive and behavioral and emotional approaches that I was able to turn down that fear, and then over time also turn down that pain. And so that's some of the things we're going to talk about today. And at Lin, what we have is an entire program dedicated care kit by care kit to all the different facets of chronic pain recovery. And you also have a pain recovery coach to hold your hand and walk you through those times, especially when fear activates. And even if you've been doing this work for a few months or a year, fear can still come back and can still be around. And so what we do then is figure out ways to turn down those sensations and turn down that fear over time. And so what we want to do, and what we'll start to do together today, is figure out a little bit about your fears specifically, and then also certain tools and tips that you can use for yourself to figure out what works best for you to dial down that fear. And so first of all, we're just going to, one, we've normalized fear. We know that this is a completely normal part of the human brain. It's activated in our amygdala. It sends our nervous system into more of that fight or flight. And then when we're stuck in that fight or flight, then sometimes what can happen is we go back into shutdown because we've lived in such a heightened state of fear for so long. We need to just go back in and recharge. And like I usually say, that's when you want to go hide under the duvet and not associate with anything. And so what we want to do is get it to a point where we can flexibly move between those states in our nervous system and not go to such extremes or such lows, and figure out how fear is affecting us. So what we're going to do, and I want this to be very cozy and safe for you, so grab your tea or your water nearby, and we're just going to have an idea of what are some of the fear thoughts that I have around my pain or around my symptoms. And I would really love for you, if you have a pen and a piece of paper, to write them down. What can happen is that we get these fear thoughts and they sit in the back of our mind, and they're that low level, like cloud of terror, like I mentioned, stuck there with us. And when we write them down, we make what's unknown known, and we can actually see what we're dealing with, see what we're working with, and see ways of maybe reframing that or changing the way that we work with fear. And so I'm going to give you a minute or two to just take a moment, take a breath. We're going to work with these fears. We are looking at them through a scientific lens. So if you want to like pretend you're in the chemistry lab and put on your goggles and put on your protective gear, we're going to go in and like excavate these fear thoughts and look at them through a different lens. So even if you notice some sensations or some things happening in your body, maybe your stomach's hurting, maybe you're nauseous, all of those things, we're just going to take a deep breath and realize that it's okay to be afraid. And what we're going to do is we're going in and we're going to look at these fears together, and you don't have to do this alone. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to check in with those, and then we'll come back. So we're just catching those fear thoughts. One of my coworkers, he's a really wonderful coach here at Lin, and he said that it's like checking for monsters under the bed. Like you actually get to go in and look and see what's there, and hopefully there are more dust bunnies than actual monsters under your bed. And that's what we're going to do with this fear thought. So once you have at least one written down, you don't have to have all of your list written down. We're going to go in and see about reframing it together and see how we can look at it differently, and also have a plan for that fear going forward. And so oftentimes what will happen is people are very scared, even if they are still having pain, they're really worried that it's going to get worse. Or maybe they don't have pain right now, but what if it comes back? What if an attack comes on or flare? What if I have an important event happening soon? And so what we want to do is take a deep breath and say, what if it goes well? What if I can handle it no matter what happens? And that's hopefully some of the tools and things that you'll learn here today, and also at Lin if you do decide to join. There's an intake call if you want to have a chat with Anna or Hunter beforehand, just to get an idea. There's a link in the chat. And so what we want to do is check in with that fear thought and see how else could this be serving me, or how else could I change this fear. Another thing with these worries and these fears, it can be very, very effective to give ourselves a time of day or like an appointment for when we actually look into these fears or allow them to take over. Because so often what can happen is they play in the background over and over again, and it's almost like ruminative, where they show up out of the worst times possible or just all the time. And what I really like to do is I like to call it out. And so it's called name it to tame it. That's the other tool. So we can do a reframe and change the way that we look at fear. And then we can also call it out and name it to tame it. Say, oh, that's fear. Oh, I'm ruminating. Oh, I'm living in the future, or I'm living in the past. And taking a breath and doing some of those present exercises and how would I want to feel instead can be very powerful. And so calling it out and labeling it, I like the word catastrophization, which just basically means we go from, what does it say, making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, chronic pain is a mountain, but there's lots of different ways to climb this mountain, and you don't have to do it alone. And so some of these ways that we can do that is to make it smaller, do bite-sized chunks, set aside a time to worry about it. Okay, I'm going to worry about pain from 12:30 to 1, and that's the only time of day that I'm going to worry about it. And if it comes earlier, I'll say, oh, you're too early for our appointment. You can meet me later. That's when we worry about this. What do I want to focus on instead? That brings me to another really great tool that some people may think of, oh, that's a tool? I can do that? Is distraction. Distraction is so helpful, and it's not sweeping it under the rug. It's giving, like taking off the blinders off of a horse. So if you think, oh, this is what I'm focused on, and this is the fear, and this is what the pain, and that's what I'm focusing on, distraction isn't pretending that doesn't exist. It's opening up your field of vision or your mind to something else entirely and focusing over here and going on a walk or enjoying a nice movie that makes you feel good, and utilizing something else or calling a friend and reaching out to someone. What are some of the things that help you? Like if you're soothing that small child that's afraid of the monsters under the bed, how are some things that you can turn self-compassion or kindness towards yourself can be really helpful. And a little bit back to the science behind fear, and we don't want to keep going down that fear path because it reinforces itself over time, back to that pain fear cycle. And so distraction or reframes can help get us out of that pain fear cycle and thinking about something else. If you've ever heard or watched any of our webinars about somatic tracking, it can be very useful to not just somatic track the pain, but also to somatic track positive or neutral sensations. And that's what I also like to do with fear, is to zoom out a bit and say, okay, what else is here? Rather than just focused on the fear and the pain, we're going to zoom out and see what else is going on. Because something super close to my heart and that I like to give permission to all of the people that I work with is you're allowed to want more than to just be out of pain. I know that's the only thing when you're in pain that you really want. At least that's the only thing I really wanted. And so often that's what I hear from folks who join Lin. It's just no pain or out of pain. And but what does that mean? What what would open up to you if you were allowed to want more? Because it's not enough to just want to be out of pain. You're allowed to want to have a full life, to travel, to have better relationships, to enjoy your work, to live a happy, lovely life. And you're allowed to want those things even as you want to get out of pain. So, what else would you look for? What else would you want? Can we zoom out and see that field of vision and see, okay, you know what, I'm having this happen today, but also this other nice thing is happening. And our brains tend to try to rubber band back and go, no, but the pain is really bad. Focus here, focus here. But it's really cool because one of my members just told me that whenever pain comes up now, she doesn't feed it anymore and she uses these tools. And now, if she doesn't give it the attention that she used to, or go into fix it mode, or really buy into the fear and let fear drive the bus, and she's able to see that her pain decreases and it doesn't get to that peak that it used to, which is so beautiful. It's so exciting. And so I really do want to open it up to some questions now, and would love to answer anything, any questions that you have. Feel free to pop them in the chat. I will go ahead and also wrap up a little bit about fear, but we're coming towards the end of our time here, and so would love to know some of the things that have come up for you, or that are still unanswered here. To summarize, we have quite a handful of tools that I've mentioned today. They may seem small, but they're so effective over time. They make such a big impact. And I really would encourage you to have a plan of action, or a flare plan or a fear plan if you notice that fear is something that comes up for you a lot over time. What are some of the things that I mentioned today that you want to try, or what's one thing that you would like to try, and see how that would work for you? Okay, Nico asks, what do the sessions with the coach look like usually? That's such a good question. So when you meet with your coach, it's tailored to you. So they're not all the same, but what I like to do, and what a lot of our coaches really like to do, is we start with what's going well, what's a win, because we're trying to, like I said earlier, build that pathway of, instead of focused on the pain, we're looking at all the other things too, because we're trying to train the brain to focus elsewhere so that we can dial down those pain signals, because the more we focus on the pain, the more it expands. And so what we want to do, and the more we fear the pain, the more it expands. So what we want to do is look at, where are some wins, what are some other things? And then we dive into what's coming up for you. Or sometimes we'll go into the care kits. And so especially as you first start the program, we'll go into, what did you learn this week? What was important? What are some tools and practices that we can do together? And so we may talk out some of those fears that are coming up, or we may go into a practice. If that week you learned somatic tracking, it makes such a difference to actually do it with someone in real time and talk about what's coming up for you. But all of these things are related back to what's going on for you, and they're tailored to you as well. And so, if there's a lot of fear coming up that week, you guys can talk about it, but your coach may say, okay, today together, we're going to change those thoughts, and we're going to catch those fear thoughts together, and we're going to reframe them together right here, right now, so that you can do this on your own as well. Because the sessions are super important, but the most important thing is that you have the tools going forward in your day-to-day life that you're practicing every day as well, to build those neural pathways, those new neural pathways of less and less pain, more and more joy and ease, and getting back to the things you love. Sometimes they'll give you homework too. If you get someone like me, I love giving homework. I'll give you lots of fun things to either listen to or read or practice. And it's silly homework too. It's not just like high school calculus. Don't worry. Is there an average length of time someone is doing the Lin program? Such a good question, Anna. And so I would say it takes as long as it takes, and to give yourself the grace and the hope that you're going to make a change. And I really love to give people the the idea and the hope that your first goal isn't actually to decrease pain in your first month. It's to learn all of these new science and to open up to that. And so um, over time, it may take 3 months, 6 months, it may take longer. Mine certainly took longer, but I would say within at least the first 4 to 6 months, you'll start to see changes after that amount of time. And it's really, really incredible whenever people start to actually have that first time of, oh my gosh, I did this thing and it used to always cause pain, but it didn't, or it got to a 3 instead of a 10. It's so exciting when that happens, but it's so nice to give yourself the permission of taking that pressure off or that fear off of I have to get better right now, which whenever someone asked me about it, I would be like, well, I want to be better yesterday. I don't want to take 6 months. I don't want to take a year. Like, that's too long. I've been in pain this long. It's time for it to just go away. I hear you, but I also have experienced myself and seen that if you can take that pressure off, it's so nice to give yourself that reprieve, because if you can build over time that trust in your body and in your system, and know that it's like learning a language, you're not going to be good about it for the first couple of months or however long it takes. But if you dedicate it and you practice, you will absolutely make changes. It's just a matter of time. Oh, Kara, I wish it was going to be outside of the US soon. I hope that this free resource center that we've just created is going to be so helpful for you folks that aren't available to take in the US. It's rethinkpain.lin.health, and it's such a wonderful, wonderful place where all the webinars and the podcasts and practices like this one are going to live there. Let's see. Lately, it's the pain that wakes me up. I read, but then I wake up more. And now, fear of bed. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. 2 to 3 hours will be in 10 out of 10 pain. What are some strategies to get out of rumination in the middle of the night? Meditating, other strategies. Yes, absolutely, Maria. So, what we want to do, and what you've now seen, is that your brain has associated, it's really great at making connections, and it's made a connection that the bed and that sleeping is not safe and causes pain. And so it's it's kind of fun to call it, oh, that's just a mistake. There's some wires getting crossed there. If we can lighten it and make it more, use levity, can be very nice when we do that. But to that end, yes, there are strategies. I really like something called non-sleep deep rest by Professor Huberman. You've probably heard about it. And so you're able to retrain your brain to be able to fall asleep better. And so if you wake up in the middle of the night, it can also be very helpful to give yourself mantras and have something there that this is what I'm going to do if I wake up and I have pain and the fear is there. So like we were talking about earlier, what are some things or ideas that you want to do if that happens? And so sometimes it can be helpful to get up and walk around and then go back to bed or go sleep on the couch. Or I used to turn, this is very strange, but I used to turn and have my head at the foot of the bed and my feet at the head of the bed. And that was something that I was able to do a little state change and get myself feeling better. And so your brain will learn over time that sleep is safe. And there's ways and other strategies as well. We would love to talk with you more. And so we are kind of at the end of time, but I'd love to go a couple minutes over since we started a little late. So I'll answer a couple of more questions, but I won't have as much time as I'd like to. So the folks that I don't get to, please go ahead and reach out and schedule an intake call. And also be sure to check out that free resource center. Okay, let's see. Okay, cannot lift more than 5 pounds without increasing pain. How does this help? So yes, I would absolutely recommend graded exposure. That can be extremely helpful, and also challenging certain things like can I lift 5 pounds of books, or can I lift 5 pounds of groceries? Or, can I imagine lifting 10 pounds, and graded exposure your way to doing that. And you can make a plan with your coach. It's super helpful to get some ideas for that going forward. But yes, it absolutely helps with increasing that strength and increasing your brain's capacity to do those things too, if that's what's standing in the way, which it sounds like it might be. Not sure which tool to use with different situations. Would it be worth to go through the care kits again? Oh yeah, absolutely. I love revisiting care kits. It's one of my favorite things. I have a member who every time she has a flare, she just goes and reads the care kits and chooses a different one. And it's very helpful. Had such an attitude of fear and pressure when started to get better. I have been in Lin for almost a year. Oh, amazing. It's helped so much. Oh, thank you, Shay. Oh, that's so nice. Um, yeah, so absolutely would be worth going through those care kits again. And I'm so glad that it's helped. But yeah, there's so much fear and pressure. And then what happens is we get stuck in that loop and it goes over and over again. And so giving yourself a list, like I like to make a menu, like you would be at your favorite restaurant and you love everything on the menu. And so some of the tools and things that you've learned through the care kits and with your coach, you're able to uh, write down, what do I want to do instead, or what should I do in this situation? And it doesn't even have to be pain related, it could be something totally different. But as you keep grasping that fear and that pain, your brain is still in fear and still sending those signals. And so the less you react and the less you respond to it, the better. Yeah, non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. It's Andrew Huberman. He's Professor Huberman from the Huberman Lab, and there's some really great ones on YouTube if you just Google NSDR. Let's see. Anna. Oh, yeah, Anna's sending the call. Oh, thank you, Maria. That's so nice of you to share the link for Jill. Okay, perfect. And then there was a question about facial dystonia, involuntary spasm. It would depend on what's happened, like what diagnosis that you've had and what consultations you've had with your doctor. But if they can't seem to find anything wrong, I would assume that it would be something beneficial. I've definitely worked with people with facial sensations or different things happening. I know there's also other mineral deficiencies and other things that can happen with spasms, but I'm not familiar with the face. But I think that was Laura, Lori, excuse me, that asked the question. So it would definitely take a consult with like your doctor or with one of our doctors as well, but absolutely worth exploring, especially if there's a lot of fear around when it happens. And so there's definitely tools that you can use to reduce that, because what I noticed when I would have sensations or things happen similarly, the more I fed into the fear, the worse that it got. So okay, we are now officially 5 minutes over, so I'm going to have to wrap everything up. Again, feel free to book that call with Hunter or Anna. It's an intake call. The link is in the chat. They're such great people and they're so kind and so wonderful to just listen and see if this would be a good fit for you, because we want to make sure that you're coming to the program that would be the most helpful for you. And so we would definitely tell you if we don't think this is going to help. But honestly, this is something I wish was taught in every school, in every elementary school, high school, everywhere, in all of the medical schools, because it's something that could help so many people. And I'm so happy that there's this free resource center now as well. So please go in if you haven't checked that out. Go in and watch some of the old webinars. There's a couple of other ones I've done, and there's some great ones that are super helpful. And so as much free information to help you get where you need to go, but also know you don't have to do it alone, and having a coach is so helpful. I just love and adore my members so much, and it's so exciting to see them make changes in their life and in their pain, and get back to doing the things that they love. So thank you all so much for coming today, and I will talk to you or see you soon. Bye.